What's up, everybody? This is Luch from Coats Outdoors with my man Tony today from 330 Archery. He was kind enough to build us a set of strings for our Torrex XT, which is our new setup for this year, one of our new setups for this year. So a big thank you for that. I'm excited to get this guy going. What we're going to kind of do for you today is a kind of whole shebang, a whole kit and caboodle. We're going to go over, we're going to put a new set of strings on here. We're going to go over the sight, accessories we're using, basically how we set up a bow. So stay tuned. All right, so first thing we're going to do is start, we're going to take off our string and our cables and put on our brand new set here. So what we're going to do first, we're going to go to our press, take some tension off. We're going to take our string off first.
Now, do you like taking one off at a time and then putting the new string on, or do you completely bare it and then reinstall everything?
So I take off the string first and then I'll do one cable at a time. Even though by now, thank you. Even though by now I kind of have been doing this long enough that I have an idea of where everything goes, I still always do one at a time because you can get confused, you know.
What's important too is every time that you build a string, there's a schematic, just as you were to build frame a house or run electricity or anything like that. So this string specifically is built at 55.3 inches. So if Luch was to not paper clip these and throw them in a bag, when you go to put them back on, what's going to happen is they're going to be at a different length, and now you're going to have issues with draw length, with poundage, etc. So it's really smart to just use a simple paper clip and go from there.
She's really strong. So now what we're going to do is we're going to mount all our accessories on this guy. We're going to kind of go through everything that we're going to be using, which I left over on your workbench. So this sight, please. So we're going to be running an Excel landslide with the carbon bar. So first thing we're going to want to do is mount this bracket. So this is the sight we got. I run a single pin model, but Excel makes a bunch of different options for this, as far as even a 3-pin, different pin sizes. So I like a single pin just because it's a clear sight picture, and typically I'm not shooting any less than 70 pounds, so and a little bit lighter of an arrow. So a lot of the times running multiple pins for me, they get a little bit close together. So I just like having one pin. You have your bunch of different marks on this bar. It depends on, everyone's different on where they want to run it. It depends on when you look through your peep sight how that housing looks. For me, it's perfect. Third one in from closest to the scope. So, and they give you nice little marks too, which is nice. So you line up the mark on the carbon bar with a little dash on that, and then tighten that nut down. As far as our rest goes, we're going to be running an HHA Virtus. One of the better rests that you can buy as far as a drop away goes, which is my preference, is QAD, but these guys are really good. Well, your rest is one thing you don't really want to like skimp on with any bow, because it's one of your most important pieces, because it's controlling where your arrow's going to go. I mean, a lot of guys run whisker biscuits. There's nothing wrong with whisker biscuits. If you're going to do a drop away though, don't really, that's one piece that you don't want to like cheap out on. You can kind of trim the fat, so to speak, on your sight, on a lot of other things on your bow, but your strings and your rest would probably be your most important.
So how do you know when that's level on there, Luch? Because obviously you can rotate that back and forth. What do you look at personally? Personally,
me, I kind of like level up the top of the rest with like that cutout and see if it's like flush with it. And then I always run a wrist sling, so I just have a standard Hoyt wrist sling and then one of their new 8-inch carbon bar. One thing you want to work on with your wrist strap too is you do not want something that is too tight, because if your wrist strap is too tight, there's no difference between that being too tight and you gripping the heck out of the bow. So you kind of just want it so you can feel it, but it's still a little loose. Boom. As far as our quiver goes, we're running a Hoyt super light stretch quiver. So I run the log version just because I'm 29.5 inches in draw, so I got long arrows, so I like having that longer connection point. It's more stable. The arrow we're going to be running this year is going to be by Exodus. This is the MMT. This specific one is a 300 spine with the stainless steel insert with a 100 grain tip. My total arrow weight is 478, so this should be a heck of a whitetail arrow. So I'm excited to shoot these guys. If you haven't checked these out yet, you might want to give them a look. So for this, there's just 2 mounting points. They're going to give you a mounting bracket on the top there and on the bottom there. And then you have your 2 locking points here. You'll just slide this guy on there, that guy on the bottom. Tighten that up. Tighten that up. Hoyt introduced these quivers as part of their inline this year. So you have different adjustment points back here for the screw on top that stops this rest. Basically what it is if you're running one of their high-end models like a Ventum or a Carbon Bow, one of their RX-7s, if you're running a Picatinny sight and a dovetail rest, you can basically get this quiver almost touching the limb, if not like right underneath the limb. It gets really slim. So it just varies because you can run this on every Hoyt model that is currently made. So I really am a big fan of these quivers. As far as our accent colors are going to be, we're going to do pink on this guy just for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I had a couple family members that were affected by cancer, so it means a little bit to me, so that's why we're going to do pink. Alright, so now we're going to tie our D-loop on here. We got our bow leveled up and down and left and right, which I always like to have some types of levels to check my stuff because I like to think I'm decent at what I do, but I'm not good enough like Dudley and T-Bone and some of these guys where I can just eyeball it and go, yeah, that's good enough. I want to be pretty precise in what I do, so I'm going to make sure my bow is level left and right and up and down, and then we're going to tie our knocking points. So what I'm going to do is put another level on that arrow. I'm going to tie my top knot here first. So we're going to do our little knots here. And the last one we're going to double knot. Take your knock out.
You only do one?
I do 2. Get our top one, and since we have that bottom one set, now we can try to push that top one out of the way. Knock down, get our serving on top there. Keep pressure so it keeps that knocked down. Start 1 knot, which should hold it, and then same thing. We're going to do 3 knots on top.
Is there a benefit from starting from the bottom first and tying the bottom knot, or is it just preference?
Not that I'm aware of. I know some guys that start with the top. I just do the bottom. That's just how I learned.
I think the only reason that I do the top is just so the arrow doesn't slide.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know if there was an actual benefit too, but this is always the risky part.
After that double knot, bring that top on. Put our knot back in. Bring our top knocking point down. Think that blade's gonna be able to cut through this?
No.
So I don't really, I see a lot of guys that'll burn and then they'll mushroom in. Actually, from watching a couple videos, I've seen a lot of guys that don't. They just burn them and let them sit as an actual knot. Because some guys will burn it and they push it too much.
It pops through.
And then when they draw, knot pops through, pow, right in the kisser.
Whoever invented those is a genius.
Pull these a little tight. What's the matter, dude?
He's exhausted from eating that bone.
He's huffing and puffing down there.
He's frustrated, nobody's petting him. Bone, warm out.
Okay, we can take our levels off here.
Do you like that level?
That's not a bad little level.
Try drop strip handle.
And there is our D-loop. So now we're going to put it back in the press. We're going to put a little bit of underserving on this down cable for this drop away cord. Alright, so some guys that are just doing this, you want to make sure you tie this material on your down cable. And a lot of times people get confused, like, well, how do you know which one's your down cable? All you got to do is take your string and pull up on it, and you'll see one cable moves up, and then your other cable moves down. Typically on a bow like this with just a split yoke at the top, your split yoke cable is going to be your down cable. So, just put a little bit of tension on those limbs. I typically go right to about the bottom of the grip. Pull top one down, make it tight, and then we're going to do the same thing. Make sure the bottom one's tight. Then we'll take our knife, just 2 lines right there. And then before I will even put in this cord, what I'm going to do first is check timing. And then after we make sure timing is good, then we'll put our cable through there. Just because if I run this cord through here and I got to add twists to this bottom cable, sometimes depending on how much twist you got to add, this cord will end up wrapped around it looking like this, and you're going to have to pop it and put it right back through again anyway. So we'll leave that out for now, check our timing, and then we'll come back and put that cord in. So typically on most of your bows, what you're going to be looking for is you're going to have, on this one it's 2 cable stops, so we got one on top and on the bottom, and we want to make sure on a split yoke that the top is touching just before the bottom to start. So right now the bottom is touching maybe about not even 1/8 of an inch before the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy down, and then we are going to add twists to the bottom cable.
So you should tell the people how very rarely it is that you put new strings on and the bow is still timed.
Oh, yeah, so here's the thing. I work at Finn Featherford and Boardman. We sew a lot of custom strings. We get a lot of factory strings. We've never, I want to say never, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've ever seen a brand new set of strings that we put on a bow come perfectly in time.
What about bows brand new from the factory, or even out of the box? Are they timed?
Typically they should be from the factory, but then again, those strings are now stretching. Again, I can count on one hand the times that they've come, and I'm like, oh, it's perfect. There's typically one that's always a little bit behind the other.
Always an argument. Have you ever got an explanation on why the manufacturers prefer, if anything, that the top cam be a little faster than the bottom?
Just from a tuning purpose, especially with like a bus cable system.
Okay.
They typically tell you that it should be a little bit ahead. However, sometimes depending on the tear you get, you might have your bottom cam be slightly ahead, but you'll never be able to feel the difference in the, as far as the wall feel goes. I'm gonna take this part off and mount it on like a piece of wood.
Well, as soon as we move, I get an actual shop, like a pull bar with a shop, 100%.
Okay. So now our bow's in time. So the next step is I'm actually gonna replace this cord just because I had it in the other one and I'm sure I didn't tie this in the same spot. So we're gonna put a new cord in here to run underneath that servo. Alright, so we got our new cord in there. So basically how I time these is pretty simple. I just run the cord through the cable, and all I'm going to do is draw it, and that pretty much pulls the cord right where it's got to go. And at the same time, we're going to see what she's pulling. It's a 72. We're going to go up a little bit.
Why?
But it's just me, dude. Well, compensation's what I'm trying to tell you here.
At least they're measuring its spec, right?
So that's actually not too bad. I might even leave it at 72. So
there, still see how it shoots from there, and
that puts that cord right where it's got to be, and pretty much don't really have to touch it any more than that. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to drop this guy back in the back of the press. I'm going to put my nose button on there. I'm going to have Tony help me line that up just in case I need to move it, and then also drop my peep sight in, and we're going to line that up next too. So we got our peep measure from our old string about where it should go. So we're going to separate the strands. It's very important that you have even strands on both sides, because that is going to keep your peep straight when you draw back. If you have more strands on one side than the other, typically you're going to run into some issues.
There's a tip though that I like to do too. If it's rotating one way, I'll split and add or take away from one side if it's starting to rotate.
See, I will do that depending on the rotation. Like if I've added a half or a full twist,
Totally.
and it hasn't done it,
Yep.
now I'm gonna start playing out with
Totally
strings.
agree.
And then I'm gonna add my nose button here. I know there's some guys out there that probably don't agree with the nose button. I shoot a nose button because it really helps with my anchor as far as shooting distance goes. So it's great because it forces you to pivot instead of move your anchor to see your sight. So that's why I'm a big fan of the nose button, Izzy.
Great.
So I don't do his tie-in either. All I'm really gonna do, just to get this started, is I'm just gonna tie a basic knot and just cinch it down as tight as I can, but enough that I can still move it. And then I'll keep these out of the way. Like you can see, it's still enough for me to push a little bit. So that way, if I need Tony, or if you're adjusting this yourself, you can, if you need to move it up or down, you still have room to move it. You don't want to cinch it down real tight, and then you're like, crap, I can't move it, and then you're gonna have to cut that dot and redo it. So,
Do you ever put marks on the top and bottom of it in case it ever does slide, so you know it's back in place?
so I will, depending on, so it honestly depends on the string too. So I've had some guys bring us custom strings that are very poor quality, and no matter how tight we tie a knot, it'll still slide because of how much wax is in the string itself. So if I can tie it as tight as possible that I physically can, and it doesn't move, like I will sit there and try to push on it as hard as I can. If I can move it just a touch, I know it's good. If I can sit there and slide it up and down, I won't even put a mark. I'll take a piece of serving, tie one little knot underneath, one little knot on top, and that'll hold it for you. Can you rotate that peep a little bit toward you? And then that peep side rotated toward you. Oh, that's money right there. Let's go.
Done Disney, baby.
So, we got our nose button where we want it. We got our peep sight right where we want it. As you can see right now, it's dead straight. So, I'm going to show you how I like to tie in mine. So basically that it never moves, and then we're going to shoot this guy a little bit. So
Why are some of the reasons why you see peep twist?
typically it's just where the peep lies in the string sometimes, especially depending on where it sits. Like you can see mine runs pretty close to the top just because it's a short ATA bow for me. But a lot of the times it's just where it sits in the string and where the string wants it to sit, because I've had some where I've put in and they're perfectly straight, and then I've put some in perfectly divided. You got strands on both sides, and it wants cant real hard left and real hard right.
And it's okay also if you put a peep sight in and you have some twist, repress it, separate it, take it out, put it back in at another point, because like Luch said, there are certain points of that string where it's going to want to rotate. You'll find that point. Now you may get a little twist here or there, but it's not going to be, you know, ridiculous and want to turn 180 degrees.
Yeah, you can always flip those strands. So like if you have it in the middle, take the peep out and flip evenly both sides and drop that peep back in. Sometimes if you real hard left, flipping them strands and dropping that peep back in is enough that it will straighten itself out. So just a couple little things to try. And that if you're taking it to a bow shop and your peep is sideways and they tell you that's okay, find yourself a new bow shop. Alright guys, so now I'm going to show you how I tie in my peep. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. Everyone's got their own technique. The way I'm tying this in right now, I was actually taught from the guy who makes Joey's bowstrings. So basically what I'm going to do is put this serving in from the bottom up through the top. I'm going to give myself a little bit extra up here so I can tighten. Then we're going to find our longer piece of serving here and pull that through. Just kind of tighten it with your hand a little bit and then take yourself a pair of pliers. What I like to do is just going to wrap this up a bunch of times here. And I kind of pull real tight on that guy. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Basically, we don't ever want our peep to move, and that's why I like this tying, is because you're going to tie 2 top knots here that are going to really pinch this guy here, and then we're going to do a tournament tie over the center, and that should hold that guy tight right there. Now the last thing I will correct is if tying these knots adds any peep rotation, I'll fix that last. Well, I mean, probably nervous naturally.
Oh my gosh. Check this out. Blamed it on his wife why he only had two bullets in the
She
bag.
owed me for spending money on ammo.
I don't know what I would have done. I think I'd be more scared of a bear. I'm not interested in bear hunting at all.
I'm gonna get that.
I was gonna go this November.
Just those things that can climb the trees like that. Like seeing all those videos of those bears that climb up next to them bow hunters.
When we're doing our tournament tie here, I typically want to get a little bit of slop on the string, because as I pull it and cinch it, I really want to make sure that it kind of digs into that string a little bit so I know it's holding it so that it doesn't go anywhere. So what I just do is tie a knot on top and cinch it, tie a knot down here on the bottom. I'm going to do this a couple times. Make sure that everything stays in its track. Tie another one on the top. Tie one more on the bottom. And then one final one on the top here, and then the last knot. I'm going to try to make sure it's centered. If I can get it to center. I'm going to double knot it. We're going to cut this. Burn.
Built bow, bro.
Take some tension off of this guy. As of right now, we're going to draw this back just to make sure, but it looks like it's going to be pretty straight to me, but that is our complete setup there. Last thing I'll do is cut this guy and get that out of the way, but we're going to shoot a little bit, make sure she's tuned and ready to rip, and then we'll go do some shooting.
Top block, bottom left block. Square. Throw the bottom right in there. Hey, so I just wanted to thank Coz Outdoors for stopping over. Glad we can hook them up with a string. If anybody has any questions, obviously we're local here to the Mahoning County. You can visit us on any social media at 330 Archery. That's 33, the numbers, the letter O, H, Archery at any social media. We use the best quality material that we can, 452X. We have a very, very quick turnaround on our bowstrings. Normally we'll have them out in a couple days. If you're local, we'll install them for you. If you're not local, we will ship them. We also have hats, shirts, etc. So I really appreciate the guys coming over today. Thank you for allowing me to put your strings on your bows, and look forward to talking to everybody soon. Thanks.
So hopefully you enjoyed our setup on this Hoyt Torrex XT. A lot of guys that know me are going to know that I pretty much shoot an RX-7 Ultra through the years, or this year, and a lot of people ask, well, why would you get a Torrex XT? And I think that a lot of the times when you look at the industry, everyone is shooting the best and highest possible, which is great if you can afford it, but not everyone can afford that. So I wanted to get one of these to build it to show that you don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get a phenomenal quality shooting bow, which is what this still is at a very good price point. So that's why I did this build. And again, I can't thank my man Tony enough for hooking me up. I'm really excited to get these shot and broken in, do some tuning with it, which we're going to go do now. Hopefully there's no cats or anything running around in the dark. But huge shout out to him for welcoming us into his home. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you in the next video.